Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us here for our second webinar. Hopefully you enjoyed and found our first webinar a few weeks ago useful and interesting, and also those of you who joined in with our Central User Forum a week or so ago about COVID-19, the library reopening. I hope you found that useful as well. As I say, thanks for joining us. It's our second webinar, and today's topics we're going to be covering Juno Study Time and Juno Vantage, which together become a space management and space utilisation product. For today's format, you'll have noticed obviously that your videos and microphones aren't enabled. If you'd like to ask any questions at all throughout the presentation today, can I direct you to the Q&A function? You should find a Q&A button, and you'll be able to send questions there, and we'll answer them either as we go along, or there's a few sections that we've reserved especially for questions and answers, and Daisy will help manage that. Also, just to point out that we are recording today's webinar session, so the recording will be made available after the event, and we'll share the link out to that, as will the presentation. And then just one other thing arising from the first webinar a few weeks ago, we had a bit of feedback asking people if we could essentially start a user group. So we've done just that, and I can direct you towards the LinkedIn website and the Century user group. You'll find it on there, and we'll be sharing our all the webinars, other information. There'll be product information releases and software updates, all that sort of thing going on there. So we'll send a link out to the Century user group on there too. So who's here this morning? Well, there's Kevin Sontag, who's the sales account manager for the South. And there's me, I'm Barney Abercombe. I'm sales account manager for the Midlands, the North, Scotland and for Ireland. And then we've also got Daisy Francis. She's our marketing manager, and as I say, she'll be helping manage our Q&A and any communications from you. And then we've got Pascalis, who is our technical expert, and he'll jump in if there's any sort of really in-depth questions. So at this point, I'll hand you over to Kevin, and he'll take us through Juno Study Time.
Thank you very much, Barney. Excuse me. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Juno Study Time, improving the library experience. So this is the first product that we're going to take you through today. And the aim of this session is to introduce the product to anyone that doesn't know it at all. We're going to introduce it from a very basic level, but we're going to jump in quite quickly and have a look at the product from the student side. It's obviously a product that students utilise. It's for their benefit, and so we're going to jump in early on and just have a look at what it looks like to them. We're then going to have a little look behind the scenes, a little look under the hood at some of the parameters that you can configure that allow it to look the way it does for your students, look the way that you want it to look. Before moving on to present to you the new Study Time phone app that we've been working hard on. This is a brand new product. You won't have seen it before. We're unveiling it this morning in the webinar, and so we'll be looking at that just a little bit later. And at the end, any Q&A that comes up during the session. So just to introduce the product, what does it do? Well, primarily it's a booking facility. So if you have a high demand resource, if you have students occasionally complaining that they cannot get to the resource that they want at a particular time, if you have students that perhaps hog those spaces, then a booking facility might be of great benefit to you. But also it provides digital signage. So these can be put up around the building, on wall signage, for example, also available on student devices, so that students can identify the availability of the resource and head for the best destination. So what are the benefits of the product? Well, first of all, if they can obviously get the resource that they want at the time that they want, then hopefully that will improve student satisfaction. That ideally will lead to increased student success. That in turn could lead to increased institution success, of course. It releases no-show booking. So this is an important point of the product. We're able to identify if a student turns up or not to something that they have pre-booked. And if they don't turn up, we can re-release it for somebody else to book. So that increases the usage of your study space resource. We can prevent space hogging. So this is where students might set down a bag or a book and then vacate the desk for an extended period. So study time can help mitigate that. It provides students with a way to book study spaces. Perhaps that's a bullet point that perhaps should have been at the top of this slide, but obviously students are able to book either current slots or future slots through the product. And we have low infrastructure costs. So at the outset of this product, we were looking at putting hardware on the desks to help us run and manage the functionality. That has changed quite early on to putting a barcode only on the desk. So as you can imagine, it has a very low infrastructure cost. How does it work? Well, we have a mobile phone app. More about that a little bit later. Students are able to book the resources online or at the desk when they turn up at a spare desk. The digital displays show availability, so they can direct students to the best places. They can also view future availability as well as current availability, so they can plan ahead. We utilize the Juno room booking software, so anyone with room booking already will have a big head start in how to use it. But that's not a problem if you don't have it. It installs as a standalone product, so it's perfectly fine without room booking. You as an institution have full control over the booking allowances of your students, of your patrons. And it's time to, thank you, Slide, it's time to look at the software. So I can take you through a couple of the
Kevin,
products.
one quick question before you start. From Kenneth Anderson, are APIs for study time available?
Yes, yeah, they are, absolutely. And they're documented so we can send any information out to anybody that wants it. So, the first thing I want to show you is a live floor plan. I've designed this floor plan to be full screen, so let me just, hopefully you can see that okay through the Zoom window. But this is should be a full screen image of my library. What I've done is I've allocated, for simplicity, I've just allocated 8 desks to the study time system over on the left-hand side here. And we can see that there are different colors. Green means the desk is free. Yellow means the desk is booked, but they haven't turned up yet. And red would mean that the desk is occupied. Let's come out of full screen and take you to a web booking application. So this is the original web booking application. It's still a valid current product, and it supports the phone app which is being released. So we have some branding available at the top. So this can be branding to your institution's colors and logos and so forth. But essentially what we need to do is, restart, is identify ourselves. Bear with me while I find my ID. We can identify ourselves potentially through a login and a password if that's how you want to set the system up. What I'm going to do is just put in my card ID. I can then choose a resource. I've got 4 different resource types, but for the purposes of today, we are looking at reading room desks. and I can then choose what day I want to book my resource for. So I'm going to just choose today. So I'm going to try and book one immediately, of course. And it takes us into a grid where we can see the resource types are columns, the time slots are the rows. So we've got a few things booked today, but I can find myself an available desk at the current time. Just to pop back into my floor plan, desk A2, you probably can't see the legend through your screen. So I've got desk A1 is down here. This is row A up to A4, and I've got B1 up to B4. So desk A2 is this one here. It's currently green. I'm just going to book it. So yes, I do, and confirm. And if I drop into here, let me full screen that. So there is a refresh rate. So it's, sometimes it will just update instantly, and sometimes we just have to sit and wait for a few seconds, talk amongst ourselves. But what we'd expect to see is that go yellow. I'm sure it will. There we go. That's probably the longest one I've experienced. Typical. So just it's now yellow. That means it's been booked. Person's not arrived there yet, of course. Now, normally the person will use a phone app when they get to the desk to confirm their attendance. Now, because I can't do that, I'm just going to fiddle my attendance. So just in order to show that going red. So ignore what I'm doing just here. I'm just going to find the booking. This is our booking here, and I'm just going to fiddle it as attended. Can't seem to, I do apologize, can't see, I should be, if I right click on that.
I think given his mark as attended because it says entered at 9.
I've got the wrong one, haven't I? Where is my,
yeah.
That's right.
It was the second one.
It's, I do apologize, it's this one here. So if I mark that as attended and drop back into the floor plan, that should turn red. Sorry about that, I had the wrong booking. So that's the live floor plan. As you can see, you're able to set this up. It's real time, and it will hopefully show the students exactly the best places to go within the resource for their study spaces. So that's basically the product from the student perspective. So if we just have a little look under the hood at some of the windows in the client application. This is a program we were just in actually that I told you to ignore. But this is what staff use to configure the system and to parameterize the system. So just a couple of things. In fact, this booking screen that we were in, which will have all been looking at while I had the wrong booking. So it shows you all your bookings. You can set up some filters at the top. We can see what resource was booked, when it was booked, who booked it, what the time slot was. And if I go across, we can see things like when we attended, who attended, because it could be different to the person that, for room booking, for example, it could be different to the person that, that booked it. How it was booked, in this case, they were all booked online, but they could be booked by the phone app, for example. And one or two other fields that, that don't need to fully explain. The next window to show you is dubiously called rooms, but in fact it applies to rooms and desks. And we have this two-tier system. So we have types of resource, and for each type of resource, we then have the resources themselves. So we can see I've set up some rooms, for example, but I've also set up my reading room desks. That's what I've been booking this morning, and that's why I've got 8 of them here. That is why when we go into the booking system, that is why there are 8 resources across here, because that's exactly what we've got set up over here. So that's the resource types. You can see actually this, because this client is the client for room booking and study time, we have a fundamental tick box here, and you can start to see, even on this page, you can start to see some differences. So if you look at some of these columns, if I go to a room, you see that some of the columns are now changing. So the system works in very different ways for rooms and desks, as of course it should, but it does handle both. So those are our study spaces. The next window to look at is booking templates. So here we can choose our start time, our finish time. We can choose the length of our booking slot. So for example, it's Wednesday, I think, and we're looking at the reading room desks. So I've got hourly slots. They don't have to be hourly. I can set what I like. And we finish at 11 o'clock. That is why we see this. That is why the student sees that when they come to book. We finish at 11 o'clock and we've got hourly slots. So this is where it comes from. We also have a calendar, so that if you do go through different periods through the year where you open at different times, you close at different times, and you don't have to forever keep setting this back up again. You just set it up once and you give it a calendar template name, and then you just go back to it, and your settings are all saved. The next window to look at is booking rights. So with booking rights, what you can do is you can specify all the privileges and settings that apply to a person trying to book a resource. You can set how far in advance they can book. That is why when we come to here, that is why we see 14 days in advance at this point here. It's because we've set it up right here. If you have many, I think it's more than 14, actually, any more than 14, but we change the calendar, so we don't have a giant pull down if you're allowed to book 90 days in advance. We have a calendar picker. We also can choose how many booking slots someone can make in a day or in a week or in a month. And we don't just apply that universally, we apply that per profile of our patron, of our student or whatever. And we also apply it per room type. So we can have different privileges for different categories of people, for different categories of resource, and it's fully configurable. And the last thing to show you is how we create this. Is this something that Telepen have to do for you? No, it isn't. It's something that you're able to do yourselves. We supply a utility with study time. It allows you to create multiple images. And what you do is you start off with a background. So the background might be a JPEG, which is a floor plan. And then you assign different shape, whatever shape your desks are, you assign different shaped desks to that floor plan. That's what I've done here. You can see I've got my 8 here. You can obviously be as creative as you like with that floor plan, and obviously getting a graphic design student to come up with something might be a good idea, to get something very original, perhaps a bit better than what I've got here. But one of the key things here in this product, if we've got this desk selected here, which is actually the desk I booked. One of the key things is the pull down here. And what that's doing is that's mapping our rectangle on an image back to our resource in the database. So that's how the whole product knows to display it green or to display it yellow or to display it red. So that is the what we call the study space manager. So it's time to just drop back to the PowerPoint. And it's time, without further ado, to introduce the slide, to introduce the new phone app to you. So this is sort of 95% complete now. These aren't mock-ups. These are actual images from the phone app, which is in sort of debug stage, and it will absolutely be available this summer with study time. So initially, you would download the app from Play Store or iStore, and you're asked to, you go through a registration process. And first of all, you identify your institution, because the product obviously has to map into your study time installation. So first of all, you start with the institution, and then you can either register through an LDAP process if you have one, or we can use an email and PIN process if that's your preferred alternative. But either way, once you're registered, you end up getting through to the home page. You can get back to this page from wherever you are in study time, wherever you wander. And there are 4 key functions available, which I can just briefly take you through. So the first one is find a slot. So find a slot, you're able to specify how long you want the resource for, and it filters that down for you to show you what's available for that duration. So as you choose a longer and longer period, the list will get shorter and shorter. And then you can choose potentially one that you're interested in, you decide to book it, and you get through to a booking confirmation screen. So this screen actually you can arrive at from 2 or 3 places within the study time app. So we will come back to that screen. But just for the time being, back on the find a slot screen, one of your other options is to set some filters, because you might have a long list and you might decide that you need to narrow that down a little bit. So with your filters, you can choose to enable or disable rooms, or enable or disable desks. You can choose to a particular time to start, or a particular date that you want your booking for. And you can filter by a resource type. We looked a little bit at resource types when we were looking at the client application, or you can filter by resource itself. So those are all options, and those filters are remembered when you drop back into the next screen. So the second option on your home page is View Calendar. And if you select View Calendar, you come into a screen which has a fairly familiar matrix to it. The green is available, it's all free, and we can click on any of the green. What we have is time slots going down the left-hand side, so the rows are different times, and the columns are different resources. And we have a calendar up the top, which is set on a single day. And the alternative to that is the third option, make a booking. It gives you a similar grid, but it's slightly different. The times are still the rows, the availability is still the green, but here we have specified a particular resource. We can click on that and choose a different resource if you want to, but we choose a resource and then we're shown the different days as columns. So these are just 3 different ways in which you can actually choose your preferred booking, and then whether you want to use the find a slot option, which is great for perhaps an extended period of time and just finding something straight away. Whether the student is minded to study on a particular day, but is not so fussed about their resource that they have, or whether they are fussed about the resource that they want, but they don't mind what day they do their studying. You've got all these different options, and they lead ultimately to an actual booking. So once you've made your booking, the next thing you really have to do is just turn up. And when you turn up, you're typically following the left-hand path down here. So you've got to scan the barcode and your countdown starts. it is perfectly possible to turn up at a free desk and scan the barcode, and your countdown will start as well. So just a few slides to show you with regard to this process. So to take a booking, you can enable your camera with your little barcode icon here. You then scan the barcode on the desk in order for the phone app to identify exactly what it is you're looking to book, and your countdown will start, and your booking is made. The square on the desk is turned to red on the digital signage. Whilst the countdown's running, you can click away if you need to disappear from your desk, and clicking away will just pause the product. It doesn't pause the countdown. It doesn't extend the end of your session. That's a fixed time, which is why we use the term away rather than pause there, but rather than pause, we've used the term away on the button. But it helps staff identify that the student, a desk might be empty, but the student is intending to return, so it helps you manage that resource. And the fourth and final option of those four icons on your homepage was to look at your own bookings. So these are your future bookings. I can click on, for example, the first one, the current one, and it will let me take it out. Or I can click on a future one. It will let me share that with friends. If it's a group study resource, for example, I can share the date and the time and the name of the resource and place of the resource with the friends that have got to be there. So that's the phone app. And just in summary on study time, we have a product that is ideal for the booking of high demand resources. If the resources are not high demand, then there's no real need to go through this process if students can just walk in and grab at any desk that they want. So it really is for those high demand resources. It enables fairer sharing, of course, through those parameters that you can set that restrict your booking rights. And that in turn could lead, just thought I'd throw this in there at the moment, it's quite topical, obviously. That could lead to opportunities for restricted opening. If you haven't booked already, then you're not allowed in, that type of thing. We minimise the impact of no-shows by identifying that they exist and reallocating the resource, and space hogging. We can minimise those impacts. We have some digital signage available, as you've seen, and all the booking information is available as transactions to be analysed either internally in the study time report suite, possibly in of course Juno Analytics, of course, which is another option, or in external third-party products. Thank you very much. I don't know if there's any questions. There's no questions.
Not at the moment.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
One's just come through. On the subject of restricted opening, could the system be used to book a time slot in the library rather than a specific resource?
The person that asked that question might be interested to know that we are, I think there's a provisional no to that question, but we are exploring something along those lines right at the moment with regard to restricted opening. It came up in the forum a couple of weeks ago, and we want to head up a focus group on it, and we want to see if we can use a booking resource to restrict access into the library. I don't know if that specifically answers the question. If not, please elaborate further on the question, or get back in touch with us afterwards, or whatever you want to do. But it sounds like that might be very relevant. No other questions. If there's no other questions, I will sort of hand you over to Barney, if that's okay, to take you through the second product.
Sorry, Kevin, one more. One user case we are exploring is booking time slots for the collect of a click and collect service. It's from Claudia.
Yeah, it could be very relevant to that, because it could link in with electronic access control, for example. So if you literally wanted, you could have it working with the turnstiles, you could have it working with a lockable door that literally doesn't let people in. That brings it in line a little bit with room booking. It's not a perfect fit as it is, and it's similar to the previous question. But I think it's something that we absolutely want to explore in the next days and weeks, but certainly days, to see if we can't do something with regard to reopening. Does that sound reasonable, Barney? Do you want to add anything to that?
Only that we've actually had quite a bit of contact from different institutions really asking this similar sort of question, whether we could adapt or modify the room booking and space booking solution to offer exactly that for a click and collect type service. So as Kevin said, we really are looking at exploring this with our focus group that we're looking into in the next week or so. And hopefully will give us an idea of where we need to go with the product and actually how we need to develop it.
Claudia has just advised that they're looking at the click and collect, which will be outside of the library for social distancing, and they're looking to have 2 slots a day.
What would be good would be if you could look out for this focus group email that we're going to send out. It would be great to have you on that focus group team, if that's possible, Claudia, and obviously you could shape what the product would look like and what it would offer, and it would be very valuable to us if that were possible. And the same, I'm sorry I didn't get the person's name of the question before that, but the same to the previous question asker as well.
Claire, sorry, Claire West.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Hi, Claire. It'd be great if you could join us as well. But anybody else interested in that? It's obviously a key subject at the moment, and we can see potential for the product to do that type of thing, but it doesn't exactly fit that at the moment.
Yeah, and in terms of click and collect, it's possibly worth me mentioning at this point as well. We do have another product, the Librarian Rover smartphone app, which we're not due to talk about today, but that can also assist you with the click and collect service. It's a smartphone app that enables you to check items out for patrons using the librarian staff mobile phone, so reducing social contact and just helping you with the circulation of your stock for a click and collect type service. So further information will be released about that shortly as well. Okay, shall we move on? Shall I take over and we'll take a look at Juno Vantage. So here we go. Okay. Excuse me a moment, technical. Why is that showing on the screen? Sorry, I'll stop that share, try it again. Share the correct screen. Right. So hopefully you can see the PowerPoint on full screen there. So Juno Vantage, this is our infographics module, which is an additional module to Juno. It does require you to be a Juno user, so those of you here who are still on ISIS but are interested in this, then we can talk to you about how you can upgrade to Sentry Juno and therefore take up this additional module. Just a bit of an agenda for how we'll cover this topic. So there'll be a bit of a product overview, and we'll talk about some hardware that may assist with the product, the configuration utility. We'll demo the actual Vantage infographics, and then a short Q&A at the end. So the purpose of Juno infographics and the overview really is that it enables you to display via web page or electronic display the occupancy and availability of your library. So it does this by providing fully customizable slides or web pages that are controlled and accessed via URL. And these auto refresh dynamically in line with the occupancy or availability as the levels change within your library and spaces. And it's a web application, so it sits alongside your Juno application on the server or the cloud, wherever you've got that housed, and just runs happily from there. So the benefits of Juno Vantage are really that it can help improve student experience and therefore satisfaction, because students are able to access the library webpage and see how busy the library is or which library, how busy each library is if you're using this across multiple libraries at your university, and then can form decisions on where to head to. So they can avoid turning up at a library that's too busy for them and perhaps risk not being able to get in. And then particularly at this time where we're looking to improve, social distancing and managing access to buildings and perhaps a reduced occupancy, it can really help assist with advertising the occupancy level and therefore whether students should head there now or at some point in the future, or perhaps head to a different learning space. It helps improve utilisation of study spaces across the university estate. We hear quite regularly, actually, particularly for universities that do have multiple libraries, and if the libraries may be called, it might be the arts library or the business library, that sometimes there's this sort of feeling that from students of other schools that they might not be welcome there. So those libraries might be very quiet, and other libraries might be very, very busy. So just looking to spread the usage of those facilities around and make sure everywhere is fully utilised. And as I say, with the current COVID-19 situation, this can also help to manage building and area occupancy and the availability, therefore, or if you're looking to reduce that availability. It can also provide library management with additional information about building usage. So above and beyond what Juno on its own does with the entrance barriers, we can expand on that into other areas. And it also has lower infrastructure costs. So the Juno Vantage software is a low-cost additional module. And then as we talk about some of the other hardware options, you'll see that they are also low-cost options, hoping to be able to roll this out across multiple areas and buildings and really give you a lot of data and oversight of what occupancy and availability is available. So how do we do this? So we utilise the Juno Access Control software and database. So you'll already have all this installed. And then it's just an additional software module that sits alongside that to integrate with your electronic signage and web page to display the information. And we use data from your entry and exit barriers and IR sensors, which we'll talk about in a sec, to be able to show the occupancy levels of the buildings and areas. And we can do that with either total library or building occupancy, and also zonal or area occupancy and availability. So that might be, per floor, or you may have specific areas that you want to see, so perhaps a postgrad area or even a cafe or your learning commons. All that sort of thing is entirely up to you where you choose to show and how you choose to show it. So I say occupancy and availability because they're actually kind of one and the same figure, just displayed in a different way. And you can also display custom occupancy information. So using the SQL database that we have at our disposal through Juno, you can choose which data you might want to display. So it might be that you can display data about a specific group of people who are using the library. So as I say, for the postgrad area, you might want to display that information or any custom element from within that database. And then we can do this, as I say, via web-based and electronic signage. So web-based, you could display this on your website. So students can access it from anywhere and take a look at the occupancy and availability. Or you could also have it displayed on electronic or digital signage, say, at the entrance to your library. So as people arrive, they could see where they might wish to head to within the library. So you can say, yeah, at the main entrance, they can see that the top floor, for instance, is very quiet, so it's worth heading there. So as I say, we can display via barriers and turnstiles. I'm sure the majority of you already have these at your libraries. It does need to be an in-out system to be able to display the occupancy. So we can do this with either adding an exit lane of turnstiles for those of you who don't have that, or we can also add IR sensors. So these are small sensors, about the same sort of size as a smoke detector, and they look a bit like that as well. And they essentially sit, or we install them to the ceiling of the area that we want to monitor, and then our engineers will configure them to essentially create a threshold line, which is the designation of whether you are inside or outside of that area. And this, as I say, is quite a low-cost way of, for those of you who don't have exit barriers, we could add this to the exit to your library, and it's a low-cost way of gaining that exit data so you can have overall occupancy data. And then we can also use these at the entrance to either internal zones of the library or other buildings where it perhaps doesn't suit full access control barriers or turnstiles, or simply for a lower cost option to gain that occupancy data. So the IR sensors, as I say, they're installed to the ceiling of the area that you want to monitor, and the counter looks down on the area, and then as people walk underneath the counter, they are counted. Important to note that this is all completely anonymous. We don't know who that person is that's walked under. We just are able to distinguish that a person or a group of people, and in fact, if it is a group of people, we can distinguish how many people in that group, so the occupancy is very, very accurate, and they are counted once they cross over that threshold. And therefore, the occupancy data that's stored within Juno, obviously increments and decrements in line with the direction of travel for those people. And then just a point there, it's a very variable mounting height that's suitable for the majority of installation areas and ceiling heights. So you can see just a couple of schematics there, really, but it just show potentially that we'd install this at either the entrance to it via doorway, or we can install it in front of a lift or a stairwell. And we can also link multiple sensors together if you've got a very wide area that you need to monitor and cover. So let's have a look at the configuration software. So this is what you use in the background to configure the web pages, and you can see here when you first come in, you've got unlimited choice of how many pages, and therefore.
Arnie, sorry, I think we're still on your presentation.
Sorry, how's that? Are we in?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So when we load up the Vantage configuration software, it takes us to this optional page where you can choose which page it is you want to edit and configure. And so you can have as many pages as you like, essentially, and you can choose which areas and which buildings you are displaying per page. So let's just take a quick look in this one. So this is just a blank image, and you can fully customize and choose whichever background image you like. This is just a JPEG. So similar to the study time configuration utility, some graphical design on here can make it look really good. And then we can just add different components. So there's a whole load out of the box, if you like. So we can have vertical bar graphs, we can have pointer gauge, we've got all sorts of different things, semicircle gauges, and then we can also add custom elements. So you can add an image, and you can also add static text. So that could be, you know, just the title of the area, so main library, and then we can choose the fonts and the colours and all that sort of thing. And then within these, we can link it to the specific zone. And it might be that you only have the one zone and it's the main library, or it may be that you have multiple zones, multiple buildings that you want to cover. And so you just select the zone that you want to cover, you can choose what colour the bars are, and you can choose the size and the positions and really set the page out so it looks exactly as you'd like it to look. Let me just save that. And then you can save the page. And then when we go to web browser, we can see here that it's displayed via web browser. So this is exactly, you just link this onto your web page, and as you can see, it's dynamic, so it will update in real time and auto refresh to the live occupancy level there. So this screen here is, you know, showing that you've got 3 libraries, so you can see the occupancy levels at the main library, the law library, the business library, and students can then form decisions on where they go from there. And so it might also be that you want to show internal zonal occupancy. So you can see the total availability there on the right, but you can also see that it's broken down per floor. So this is a percentage of the availability or the occupancy, and from that you can form obviously quite a good decision about how busy the area is. And as I say, it's all fully customizable. You can choose the background, all the text, all the images, and all the branding. It's entirely up to you to really make it suit your institution. So back to the presentation. Yeah, so zonal occupancy. So it's occupancy or availability for different floors or for different areas, different sections, zones, cafes, learning commons, essentially wherever you want to display the occupancy for, and for different buildings. And we can also include study space and room booking data within here. So if you've got some room bookable rooms available via our room booking product or study spaces, you can also display this via the web page as well. And as I mentioned before, we can also include custom SQL data. So, for instance, let me just see if I can. Yeah, so here we can see we've added the web frame for, as Kevin showed us just now, for the reading room study spaces, and that will also update in real time. So you can really show your students either by your digital displays at the entrance to your library or in the entrance to that area, and also via web page the availability, and they can form decisions from there. So to summarise, Juno Vantage displays occupancy and or availability. You can show it remotely on your website or on local digital displays. It will help you manage building and zonal capacity. It will help improve space utilisation. And it will assist student decision making on where to study by the digital availability signage. So, any questions arising from this? No, okay, no problem. Thank you very much. Well, I'll pass back over to Kevin to tidy up for us.
Oh, hold on, Barney.
Yeah.
It said, I know you said low cost. Roughly how much is low cost for the Vantage add-on? We don't have an exit gate. Would the sensor you showed us enable us to track this? It's Mark Butterworth.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Mark. Yeah, so the sensor, the IR sensor that I've just shown, yeah, absolutely, that could be installed at for the exit at your library to give you that exit data, and therefore your total occupancy of the library. The sensor, including installation, is in the region of £2,000 to £2,500, assuming it's just for a sort of a width up to about 3 meters. And then the Juno Vantage software itself is, if I remember, Kevin, it's about £2,000 too. So
that sounds right. Yes.
Yeah. So the Vantage software and the hardware, it's all one-off cost. There's no additional licenses for it. And as I say, the sensors, you can add more of those over time and increase the occupancy data available.
We do have some offers, discounts on some products, including Vantage, which is all in connection with restricted opening, where we're hoping to do our little bit just to help you out. So we will confirm some of those details in the coming days as well.
Cool. Okay, let me stop sharing. So over to you, Kevin.
Thank you, Barney. Any more questions? That concludes everything that we wanted to show you. Just get my last slide. I do apologise. Yes, that concludes everything we want to show you. If anyone does have any more questions, fire them over as soon as possible. We might be able to squeeze one or two in just before the end. Thank you for joining us. We will be sending out some details, following some bits and pieces following the webinar. So that will include the PowerPoint itself. And as Barney said, we are recording the webinar, so that will go on our YouTube channel, and we'll be sending out the link for that as well. We do have the Q&A record. We do have a record of the Q&A, so we will be tidying that up a little bit, as is traditional with our webinars. We will be sending those out, so we'll tidy those up, put a bit more detail in, get them back to you next week. Our account managers, so that's me and Barney, will try and catch up with you individually from here on to see if any of what we've spoken about is of further interest to you. In the meantime, of course, do not hesitate to get back in touch with us on anything at all. The office phone number still very valid in the present times. And if you can't remember who your sales account manager is, then sales@telepen.co.uk will be absolutely fine. We don't have any planned events just at the moment confirmed to tell you about at the end of this one. The user group is still very much anticipated to come back on as soon as safe and practical. Thank you for your words of support, many of you. And it seems to be something that you enjoy, so we definitely plan to bring that back. And we're delighted with the support of these webinars as well. So we definitely need to find some more material to entertain you and to interest you and run some more webinars. Certainly in the short term, the focus groups that we spoke about during the last hour, we definitely want to kick them off as well. So we might see and join some of you for that. But until next time, if there's no more questions, possibly not. If there's no more questions, until next time, then thank you very much for joining us. Goodbye and stay safe. Thank you.